Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our live weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Scott Mullins from Malawi Working Dogs.
Scott will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they'll win a bag of Enduro high energy food for working dogs and real kangaroo meat. How's it going, Scott? All good there?
Bloody beautiful. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No, thank you.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks for jumping on. I just seen you looking around and I was like, oh, is it all good?
No, I always think everyone's really badly prepared when they come to the question, and then I just asked my wife to get me a pen and paper so I write this stuff down as we go.
Just in the background, mate. If you like a question, just look at her and go, "Yep."
Well, there is one question here already.
Yeah, that's right. We'll wait. We'll hang on to that one. Family don't get to come to straight to the beginning of the line. That's okay. No, mate, Scott, thank you very much for jumping on tonight, mate. We really appreciate it. For our listeners out there that don't know yourself, mate, do you want to give us a quick rundown on who is Scott Mullins?
Yep. So I'm Scotty Mullins. I'm actually pretty humbled to have been asked to be on this illustrious show that you guys have. I am a farm manager in the Western Districts of Victoria. I'm a father of three, husband of my lovely wife, Annie. I have a little small Kelpie stud, and I breed a few stumpy tails, but I'm not breed racist. I've got a Hunterway, I've had collies, I've had them all. So, so I probably grew up in New South Wales. Well, I did grow up in New South Wales.
So were you drunk?
No, it's just straight coffee, I promise.
No, when you were growing up, you said, I probably grew up in New South Wales.
No, I actually was born in Auburn, in Sydney, and I spent 8 days there and I didn't like the joint, so I left there as a little fella, and we moved to Orange, and that's mostly where I grew up. But I've lived in Gosford, Taree, Perth. That's where I finished high school. But I've been everywhere, man. So yeah, and then I left school. I knew I wanted to be either in agriculture or a school teacher, and it's weird how you end up, because I left school and I jackarooed and built my career up through that, and I ended up becoming a trainer with a group called Wrist in Hamilton, and so I taught ag skills there for nearly 10 years, as well as working as a contractor in the around the Hamilton area. So it was weird. I actually ended up doing both, but I'm back managing farms now and loving it.
How did you end back up on the property?
I got approached by the company to come back, and I knew the previous manager, and he and his wife had done a very good job, and I knew him very well. And we've been having discussions about how I could be involved, and it grew from there. So I wasn't looking for a role, but it's happened in my career and happens in most. It's word of mouth, it's connections. I was talking to Josh Laddie today, and it's weird how the dog world gets you in and networks you and helps get you, helps your career out, and it certainly has all the way through my career. Every job, I can guarantee, every job I've ever had has been because of working dogs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny, like sometimes, what helps you, but who get your foot in the door too, right?
It does, exactly.
And you mentioned earlier about jackarooing. Do you want to talk us through that, mate? Where'd you end up?
Well,
how did it come to be?
Well, I'm the son of a insurance salesman, and my mum worked for Centrelink for 35 years. So agriculture skipped a generation. So I knew I was keen. We had a little farm that I thought was it and a bit around Orange, around Ophir. As far as carrying capacity goes, you could run a rat to the square mile there. It wasn't a very good property, but I did learn the value of a good mustering dog there. So when I was a young youth, and so we moved to Perth, and I was like a fish out of water over there, and I loved it. It was great. The chicks were hot. I learned to bodyboard. It was good fun. But as soon as I finished high school, I moved back to Orange like that, straight away. And I got a job on a farm around Orange for a very bad farmer. And I did a traineeship, and I met a mate through that, and we connected over sheepdogs of all things. And he got me a job on a really good farm called Tunbridge Wells, and the owner manager there put me on as a second year jackaroo, and I learnt a tremendous lot from him. So that's how we did, and I got promoted to overseer reasonably quickly there, and once again it was because of dogs that, if you've got good dogs and you're clever with stock, you can build your career reasonably quickly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry. I don't want to mention any names or anything, but you made a statement like by a bad farmer. Like, do you want to just elaborate? Like, why was it such a negative experience?
He was a tight ass.
Was a negative experience.
He was a proper tight ass, so he paid the bare minimum. I don't even know how. If it wasn't for the kindness of my grandparents, I don't know how I would have survived. I could put fuel in the old Sigma. That was about it.
Great car.
They were not. That was a piece of junk, that thing. But I used to put the two sheepdogs in and go to work every morning. He wasn't a good farmer. His animal welfare was terrible. His management was next to zero. The overseer that I worked under there resigned 6 months into it, and I got offered the overseer's role as an 18-year-old kid on 4,500 acres there, and he just that should never happen for starters. It was just I was a cheap option. I'll give you an example. We were feeding out wheat, and I didn't know much, but I didn't think wheat should blow away in the wind. So I was feeding it off the back of the ute, and it was blowing away on a windy day. And I said, "Oh, Mr. So-and-so," I said, I don't want to be rude, but how long's that wheat been in the silo? And he said, "Oh, I don't actually know. It's probably been there about 25 years since we bought the place." And so I was never going to learn much there. So it was mostly the learning. I didn't mind the work. The work was good, and I met some top blokes, some really good shearers and landmarking contractors, and the stock were pretty good. The one thing he did was invest in good stock, but it was the way he grazed his pastures, his stocking rate, it was all horrible. Just wasn't pleasant.
How then, when you got into the teaching role, do you think that experience really helped you out? Like, because you said the next one was fantastic, but having like that one that wasn't so fantastic, you reckon that balanced out things for you?
Some good stories to tell while you were teaching, at least.
Bloody yes.
I am renowned for it.
So guys and girls, this isn't how you feed out wheat.
And I might even use that story. But no, it definitely helped me when I became a trainer, and providing feed as a unit that we did, and so it did two things. So my second boss, he was a gentleman, and very well trained himself, and he trained young men. So a bloke I used to jackaroo with, a young fella. He and we lived together, and we used to compete a fair bit, but with everything, how quick you could drench a race of sheep, who could get back to the sheds the quickest, all that on the ag bikes. It was all sorts of different things. But who had the toughest sheepdog? I wouldn't do it now, but we did then. And all those stupid things. But Mr. Brown, I will say him, he just would make it. He was hard, but he was fair, and so you knew what you did. He rewarded good work at the end of the pay week, we used to get an envelope, and you'd have to go up to Mr. Brown's house and go and collect your pay, and it would be on the back window, and there'd be a little note that would say, "Oh, look, Scotty, thanks for a big week. Really appreciate all your efforts," and there'd be a bloody pineapple in it, and you go, "Holy moly, geez!" In those days, that was amazing to get that an extra $50 in a fortnight. So he when you paid you a little bit above the award, he trained you well. He gave you weekends off when we weren't busy. It was just a good one. And yes, and so I definitely did. I remember those good opportunities and being treated well. And I always thought, and positive works better. So for a trainer, I always try to pump the young ones' tires up. Because I'm a massive believer in it.
Yeah. So how did you go from there to training? How did that come about?
So I did. I've worked in. I don't know.
And did you just become the principal straight away there as well?
No, definitely not. I'm the CEO's office is just over there. But no, I had a career where I got opportunities offered to me through over four states. I've worked in 4 states in different areas, and from 3,000 acres up to 25,000 acres. I've worked as a cattle manager, as assistant manager on a big super fine merino place in Tassie. And I built my career first. So there was a long time between jackarooing and training. So I went from overseer. It's actually the longest apprenticeship you'll ever serve to become a manager. And I don't think you can rush becoming a manager. So any young ones out there, don't rush to do it, because there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things to learn between, from leaving school and becoming, I think, a good manager. And I don't even think that I am one. But the training I was working with, I was on the committee for the Castor and Kelpie Association, and we were doing demos, working dog demos down at Warrnambool. And we would, in between the cannon fire that they were doing on this, I forget what, Flagstaff Hill or something it's called, where they were setting off the cannons. My dogs were trying to bury themselves in the ground between each cannon fodder. They're not very gun-proof. And then I was doing these demos, and there was a lady there that saw me doing the demonstrations, saw that I might have had the gift of the gab, so said, "Would you ever be interested in working with us?" And I said, "Sure, definitely. I always look at opportunities." So did that, and lo and behold, I got offered a traineeship coordinator. What I did work out there is that I'm not very good at being a traineeship coordinator. I might have a little bit of ADD, and so I need to be out in the tools a bit. But I was a reasonably good trainer, and so they came back on part time as a trainer while my wife and I ran a little contracting business called Malawi Agricultural, and so I grew from there. And I absolutely love the training. I've got mates that I trained 10 years ago that come and shear my sheep, and that I'm friends with now, that were like 16-year-old kids that we showed them how to use a drench gun and ride a quad bike safely, or did a chemical users course, that kind of stuff.
Did you find going from doing it full time to going back part time and contracting, you had more credibility with your students because you still had hands-on practical experience?
One of my biggest griefs is, and I had great trainers when I did my traineeship in Orange. So I had two tremendous blokes that taught us what to do, and they were proper farmers. And I do believe that there's trainers and there's trainers, and I think you've got to have a bit of street cred, and you've got to be able to walk the walk. Hopefully, I do have that. They keep trying to get me to do tractor courses here, and I push back because if any of my employers or workmates are here from my past, they would all laugh if I got ever asked to train tractors, because as a tractor operator, I make a very good sheep man.
I love it.
I was waiting for some like optio scientist or something.
No, definitely not.
So from there you went contracting, and now what are you doing these days?
So I manage a farm it's a group of farm called Holt Farms, which is, we have 30,000 composite ewes. We've currently got about 11,000 ewe lambs with them. We haven't sold any of those yet. So with that, and we've got 4 full-timers, 3 casual staff members to run those. They're not all on one block. It would be a dream. It'd be easy to run if it was all in one block. Unfortunately, they're spread over 8 or 9 properties. And they could be 45 minutes apart, the furthest of them. So I do a lot of miles drinking coffee and making phone calls. And I've got a tremendous group of young stock people that are extremely passionate about agriculture and work their asses off for me there, and they're very clever. So I'm spoiled rotten with the staff that I have, and the opportunity that's been extended to me to manage an operation like this, because it's great.
You're only as good. Sorry, mate. I was going to say, it's only like you've just given your staff an absolute rap there. And I just wanted to actually highlight that, because, like, let's say you're only as good as your team, or you're only as good as your cattle, right? Like, so highlighting that is obviously, it speaks a bit volumes about yourself.
Mm.
And coming from like the educational background to it and running a team, do you find that helps you with the young people to get them motivated? Or do you find that sometimes they find you patronizing because you go back and maybe use some old training techniques?
Is Harriet Waters on there now? Because she thinks I blow wind up her backside all the time. No, so
actually, she is listening. G'day, Harriet.
She is on tonight.
Hi, Harriet.
Wasn't a question from her.
So I've got Adam James, who's probably he needs no introduction, but we all reckon Haz is a better dog woman than Adam is. So that's saying something. Just joking, Adam. But no, it does. It's a fine line. I honestly, and I keep going back. I'm not perfect, and before this, no joke. I'd employed casual. I might have employed one casual, and Annie and I we work really well with cattle work, but sheep work we're probably not as good as what we could be. So I wasn't. It's not like I've got a great experience as a leader of staff. So I'm still learning on the go. I haven't been in the role for 12 months yet. But I have worked in big teams and been involved in the training industry. It definitely helps. Attitude and the way you talk and lead your staff is important. And I do believe in, I actually stole this from Ian O'Connell. So Ian O'Connell's got an analogy when he talks about a young sheepdog, and he'll say, if you go and prune, and he makes it like a shrub or a bush. So if you've got a shrub or a bush, and sorry, Ian, if I paraphrase this wrong, but you trim and you cut it and you keep it down and you keep it in the shape you want, and it takes forever to grow and develop, and it might never grow to its full potential. But if you let it grow out and a bit wild and bushy, and you just take a bit here, a bit there, and you just trim a little bit at a time, and you just take that little bit of an edge off it, and you'll end up having a really nice, well-rounded shrub or bush at the end of it. And I think I do it with my kids. I've got my 3 kids are at home now, probably watching here, but I've got one, and they'll know who I'm talking about, and anyone who knows my 3, I've got one wild, rowdy bush that needs a little trim every now and then. And so I don't see it any different whether it's a sheepdog pup, a staff member, or my son. Not mentioning any names, Clancy. Yeah. So that's the way I see it. I want to encourage them to grow big and strong and powerful. You don't see athletes going out there thinking, "Oh, I might score a try today, or I might kick a goal." They go out there thinking they're going to, breathe fire and kick 10 or score 15 tries. That's the way. That's what a winner thinks about, and that's what I want, staff to think like.
Oh, mate, that's awesome. That's admirable. And you believe that that's a way of a culture change happening out there? And are there still a few dinosaurs about?
Just definitely dinosaurs. Definitely dinosaurs. But I definitely do think it is a winning culture. And the company I work for, I give them due credit. They try to do everything right in that regards, in regard with staffing and so I get supported from above really well. And so they know that there's benefits of keeping people like that. And I think all the corporates are starting to realise that, and they've got to have good staff and to retain them. They've got to look after them. So we're coming up with ways to do it better. And agriculture's been the last bastion of unsafe work practices, and that includes bullying and not looking after your staff mentally.
Yeah.
So it is becoming better, but I think ag still is a long way to go.
Yeah, and how about investing in them?
I think they do. I mean,
there's so many ways to invest and develop your staff, right?
You do, and it's a challenge. I'll admit it's a challenge because I remember coming on board last year and we had a trainee that was away a day a week, and we're that under the pump. We've got a lot of things going on, and you go, "Oh, a day a week, geez," and it's frustrating. When I was a trainer, I didn't care. You've got to come to training every week. That's that's part of your traineeship. You have to come. As an employer, I find that very challenging to avail them for training because hang on, we've got relying on you, and so it's sort of it's a fine line. So yes, but we have to invest in training, we have to invest in wages, and we are getting a lot better. When I left managing my previous place, all my staff, which was only 2016, all my staff were above what I was managing 6,000 acres on. And I was on my own and did the lot, my wife and I. So the wages since 2016 have gone up dramatically. There's a contractor, and I won't mention his name, but he had a great advert, and there was a discussion about what we have to pay people now, and that is a reality. That's what we have to start looking at.
I'm pretty sure I know the advert you're talking about. I remember reading about it, yeah, or following it a bit.
Yeah, and half of my staff, looked at it and they're not allowed to look. I'm going to revoke all internet privileges from them.
So I know harping on a bit, sorry, but just what kind of ways are there to incentivize and to invest in your staff? Like, obviously within the business and upskilling with different courses, but like dog handling schools and
yep. So we've already done a Gary White school this year. Adam does schools out there already, so he just does little short ones, and he can run as many as he wants. So dog schools are important. Stock schools are important. I remember I did a low stress Jim Lindsay school, 2003 or 4, and that was a massive light bulb moment for me, and probably changed the way I looked at stock. I thought I was good with stock till I did that, and that blew my mind. So definitely that. I think dangling carrots in front of people is important, and having career paths set up, so that and they're clear and honest and realistic. So I'm part of a corporate, and you know we've got some opportunities elsewhere potentially going forward. So I'm too honest half the time, and I don't really hide much. But I've told the CEO of our company that that we'll train managers. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to let my good ones go, and I tell them that I'm happy to let them go. Not yet, they're not allowed to go yet. But once we, so there's got to be a process. So you try to help their careers, and it's selfish to try to hang on to them, and it's unrealistic because you won't hang on to them. So let's train them, get the best out of them while they're there, make your workplace attractive so that if they leave, it's very easy to get other people in. And
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is you put all this time and effort into staff and the I forgot the word you used, but staff development, I guess, with the schools and all the rest. How do you convince the corporate people that it's beneficial to them when their staff could leave next week?
I think the runs on the board in ag over the last 10 or 15 years in my career where people don't stay forever, and so we know, and so they know they're not silly. They're the corporates have got to their stage by knowing it, and so they know that you're not going to hang on to them. I've worked for 4 corporates, some good, some not so good. I like the corporates because they got money. And it's not just money for wages; it's money to invest back in the farm, so that you don't have, like, for instance, this year we've got 2 new buggies, we've got a new tractor. In the last 12 months, we've had 2 lids put over some of the yards and brand new shearing shed. They're not afraid to invest in agriculture. It's and to be honest, I'm the worst manager gone. I didn't cut a kilo of silage. And the market fell out of the store lamb, which is our main income stream. So I'll go down as the worst manager going for farms. But they're still willing to invest, and that's why I like this crew I'm with. And some are good and some are bad. Family farms, I love family farms, and so my greatest experiences as an individual and as a family have come from family farms and having my family part of those. But unfortunately, they don't have the capital to spend I've got rich tastes. I need to be
smoking on lunchtime on the company custody, right? Mate, and while we're talking about investing now, how about investing in stock? Like, and I don't mean like purchasing, I mean like investing effort, putting time and effort into the stock you have on the ground. What's your philosophy on that?
As in, so what do you mean, Dan? Sorry, so as in,
so like low stress stock handling techniques and
you've got to do that, and my predecessor, so Richard Davies was my predecessor, and I'm going to give him enormous credit for what he's done. So I actually got offered this job several years ago before Richard was there, and I couldn't see a vision. He got offered it not that long after, and they had 900 sheep. He grew it to 30,000, and he did it really well. Now the sheep that he bred it's a Romney Highlander cross, a composite sheep, really tough, really fertile, and I used to watch from afar. The reason I'm involved in this is because I used to watch from afar and see the grass that they grew, the type of sheep they bred. So it was great. And part of that was the stock management, and really calm, really good stockmanship across all of them, really high ideals for that. And so I guess I've tried to continue that on. I'm a different kind of manager, and I run things differently. But one thing that I do, I'm a massive believer in stock, and I don't like just mentorship because, as I said, I'm probably equal employer. So we've got women involved in our business as well, and some of the stock womenship as well, but calmness of the way we move our stock, and I don't like to see stock running. They're running off the condition that we spent a lot of money in fertiliser and pasture and grazing and labour to get to. So the team, they walked a mob of 2,000 lambs, 5 or 6 Ks today from one property to another. And I got a Snapchat halfway through the day, and it pleased me no end because there was someone in the lead, there's someone on point, and there was someone behind taking this mob of lambs away. Now, they've had a tough time, these poor buggers, because we've had a horrible case of pneumonia through our lambs, but they were looking after those sheep. And that's what I like to say. And when I had cattle, I made sure whenever cattle went anywhere, they walked. That's what that's their job. You got to walk everywhere. Not allowed to run, not allowed to trot. They have to walk. And it makes it safer. It makes the stock better. They relax more. I don't care if they graze. If they're struggling, I say pull them up. Let them have a camp. I don't care. You're allowed to have a camp under a tree and let them, take their time. So looking after our stock is vital. So investing that way. I hope I've read the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you spend any time like breaking in your lambs to dogs and to walk, I guess?
Like
I do with cattle?
I think I was listening to one the other week and you asked this question. We don't. I've done it with cattle, and when I was at Blackwood at Penshurst, it was the first time I've ever been able to do it. And we had 1,000 cows, and I broke in every weaner there, and I had and so we did it with the cattle, and I loved it, and the results were amazing. And I've got a really bad video that I nearly put on Facebook, but I don't like the sound of my own voice, but of 600 weaners walking back into the yards of their own volition. I'm 150 metres away, and they're walking back in with 2 dogs, a stumpy-tailed cattle dog and an old Kelpie, just walking back into the yards by themselves. Now, that works for cattle. Why the hell wouldn't it work for sheep? And we do sheep work so much more often than we don't. And I had a protocol in my head that I did with the cattle to get them to that standard. Why don't we do it with our sheep? And I think the fundamental answer is time. Because you would get your sheep right. I think habits, and I keep going back to the credit to my predecessor and the staff I currently have. They all make their stock walk. If we have someone that might be different or a contractor come in that might not be, and it doesn't happen very often because we do most of the mustering, but most of our sheep come in and they walk out and they lead and they look for gates. They do those things well, and that's just habits, and it's good habits from weaning. So I think we sort of do it, but we don't do anything in the yards and we don't do anything enough. We could do it better, and I think the sheep industry Australia-wide could do it better.
And you mentioned there about having your sheep walking and whatnot, and you think that's a massive part of finding them the way you left them. So if you put them out that way, you're gonna find them and bring them back in the same way.
Yep, a good mate of mine says that every time when I was contracting. He's a real cranky bum, and I get on very well. We drink beers really well, but working with him is always interesting. But that's one of his pet ones. Is that you put the cattle or the sheep back in there the way you expect to find them, and it is, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, there's a question here from Tom Gooden. How has your requirements changed regarding your dog team from contracting to now managing farms?
My dogs have learnt to like caffeine.
So he's got all dash hounds now.
Yeah.
I actually do. I've got one. I know you do.
We both do.
And so, wow, yeah. So, look, I'm a glorified delivery boy these days, as Tom is, I'm sure. So, the dogs I had, I used to contract for Tom actually, but
It used to before you just made that comment, or it used to?
No. No. Well, I hope I don't need to do that in the near future. But no, so my dogs, I've still got my dogs. My dogs go every day to work. Actually, today was the first day that I didn't load up a dog since I started. But my dogs go every day, but my team fundamentally do all the stock work. I fill in where I'm required. So my requirements of my dogs are probably less. I ran a hunt away for the last 3 years of contracting, and he was a godsend. But I know sometimes I get asked by my team, "Hey Scotty, do you reckon you can put your hunt away?" Because he's so wound up these days that he's almost more of a hindrance. And I can see that, and I have no problems with it. My team's good. One good thing though from contracting, when I was working as a contractor, I felt really I was being paid by the hour, so I didn't train dogs on the job, and so I'm notorious for running a dog. I have my favourites, and I would run them until they're grey, and then my wife always says, "You always think they're younger than they are," and before I know it, they're 14 and going, "Oh shit, I better train the next one up." Not quite that bad, but but now what I'm finding, I actually have the time because I'm at the back of the yards and just getting the next mob in. So I'm actually training my young ones and getting a great deal of pleasure. I ran a young dog tonight, and she did a tremendous job getting a mob of ewes in, and she's calm of mind and can handle the training better now that I don't have the pressure of trying to pump out numbers for my clients. So that's the way it's better, I think.
So has your type or style of dog sort of changed from then?
Yeah, I started with Rambulan, Ken Atherton stuff in WA, and I put a bit of Capri in. So I used two of Chris's dogs years ago, a little bit of Avonpart. And what I did, and that gave me a great base for my Kelpie stud back in the 90s. And I loved it. And I had the Rambulan gave me a bit of ability and an excellent, outside ability. And I got that little bit of punch and power from the Capri stuff. And certainly brains. What that enabled me to do. So I'm fundamentally a sheep man, but for a little while there, I was really strong in the cattle industry, and so I had to start breeding a cattle dog, and so I did, and the baseline of my stuff bred. So every time I changed a role, I could breed something that would suit that a little bit more. If I went back to, so when I went to the Saxon fine merinos, I had to breed, something a little bit more talent out in the scrub and the bush down in the Midlands in Tassie, and change back. It's been good. There's one bad thing that's happened because I brought the cattle stuff in years ago. I probably brought a bit of bite into my dogs that I don't like, and I've got a good mate that I just sold another pup to, and he just said locally, yeah, I love your dogs, Scotty, but geez, the bastards bite, and it's probably something that is hard. And once you put it in a line, it's hard to get out, and I don't love it. I don't necessarily like bite. Definitely on sheep, very rarely on sheep, and only when they need it on cattle. So, but yeah, so I did have change, and my stumpy tails are getting fat and and all they do is come out cutting firewood and lazing around on the weekend. So I feel sorry for those poor buggers nowadays.
Actually, I just want to jump back just a little bit there, because actually before we came on live, we're talking. Well, you just made a comment on that your missus gets up to, hey Scotty, your dog's 14 years old, and something coming through. And we were actually just talking about that before we got on live. that's pretty common, right? Like things just creep up,
They
and
do.
before you know it, you're like, holy shit, I've got nothing coming through.
Yep.
Or even if you do, but like you mentioned, might be a decent bitch, and then she ends up in pup, and and then you go, oh, maybe I'll try another dog over us. So she doesn't actually quite fit into the work team there, or even maybe a trial team for someone there, and you're left with kind of a void. And before you know it, you've got a team there and nothing coming through. Like, have you been caught out like that?
I haven't been caught out. I've just been able to snag things every time, just in throughout my career, which is nearly 30 years. So I had a boss bitch. So I bred this Ramiland bitch years ago to boss it, and she was hitting a bit, and I loved her. I thought she could. If in better hands, I thought she could have won anything trialing and that kind of stuff. But where she excelled was I could fill a shearing shed. I could work cattle. I could work 3 sheep. I could work 1,000. She just did it all, and she was amazing. And I bred her to everything. She probably had too many litters, to be honest. I was trying to find the next. Her name was Chance, and I tried to breed the next Chance, and nothing, zero. And because I didn't like any of them and they weren't up to scratch, I never kept anything. And then the second to last litter, I kept one, and I didn't love it. She was just a dog, but I put her to a good dog, and reasonably closely bred, and I ended up getting something, jagging something, and I went, oh, I've wasted 10, well, not quite, 8 years of this dog's life, and I ended up getting something, and then it sort of the penny dropped for me. So I'd love to say I'm a great breeder of dogs. I'm not. I've got a lot to learn. I'm 45, and I wish I was 25 and know what I know now as a dog breeder, because it's and I wasted genetics. So
That's all right. Just don't make any mistakes the next 35 years.
yeah, that's the problem. I won't. I promise I won't. Thanks for that advice. Good advice. But anyway, so I just got out each and every time. I've just been able to get out. Partly I think my grandfather, he used to get all these rejects. So I read your list of questions, and I've spoke to and I've listened to these, nearly every single one you've done. One of them is who inspired you? Both my grandfathers did, and one's up in heaven, and the other bloke's he's 90 odd up in northern New South Wales.
Oh wow!
Both good with dogs, both talented in different ways. One was, I think, he was amazing. He got me going. Anyway, he showed me, what to do with, and he would get people drop in. We were out the back of, he was out the back of Bathurst, and he would have people drop in and drop off these town rejects, or people that had a dog. Someone gave them a half-bred sheepdog pup, and they would, and there was too much in town, so they drop it out to Vic. So old Vic would turn them into a champion and sell them, for $500 or $600 back in the 80s. Anyway, he had like half-bred terriers and half-bred Labradors that he turned into sheepdogs. And I'm going, oh my God, if you can do that with that, imagine a dog with talent. And we did. So we ended up setting him up with a few really good ones, because he's too tight to pay for good dogs. And we just told him he wouldn't have accepted it if he said we had bought him for him. And actually, that Ramiland bitch was one I bought for him as a kid, and we also got one from near Millthorpe, near Orange and Blaney. But anyway, so that taught me the value of work, and I think work can make a dog. So I think you can create a little bit of talent with your dogs if you put the effort in, and you need. Sometimes there's a need, and I can guarantee there's 100 jackaroos, thousands of jackaroos over the years. Their first dog's their best dog because they've had nothing else, and they've had to make this dog do everything, and the buggers have, and they say, oh, it's the best dog I ever had. It's because you had nothing else and you had to make him do it.
Do you remember your first dog?
Yep. I had a pet dog. She was Bindi. She grew up around. She was a red cattle dog, extremely untalented with livestock. But my first sheepdog, Pop gave that Rambulene bitch back to me, and I was spoiled, and that's what made me realise the value of a good dog. She had brains, and she definitely had brains. She had thinking. She wasn't the most athletic dog, but she was the mother of that chance, and I guess she put a stamp on the type of dogs that we're trying to produce now. Because that little black bitch at work this afternoon is a great granddaughter, you know, and has that same bit ability, that same natural, I guess, shape on a stock, but you know, and feel, and so she was a tremendous old bitch. So yes, she was good. So she was Rambulene Maddie. We called her Biddy, and yeah, she was a ripper.
Beautiful. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, that's all right. What do you mentioned your own lines there and breeding for your own pups? What are you looking for in your own line?
It's been the
Obviously
same.
not bite.
Sorry.
Obviously not a lot of bite.
No, I don't want the bite. When I was on cattle, I did, but I can work any mob of cattle with my soft sheepdogs and my stumpy tails. Now, it sort of goes against my LSS stuff, low stress stock handling, when I talk about healers, but I believe in pressure and relief, and I believe the healers apply a lot of pressure in a very short period of time, but it's important that they give that instant relief. So they're allowed to give a whack on the heels, maybe a nose bite and then a heel, and then they've got to, if they do any more, then that's naughty little dogs. They're not allowed to do that. So I still see it as pressure and relief for my stock. So I can put up with a dog that probably isn't a Kelpie that isn't as powerful. And I've had powerful dogs, like old Salty. He was a cracking old dog. Matt Simmons bred him, and he was a beautiful dog, and he bred a lot of nice dogs for me. And he was strong. But so I like cast, and that country at Ophir, we'd be out shipping serrated tussock out of the hills and spraying blackberries, and that old dog that Pop had, he'd go out mustering of him by himself because we had about 115 sheep. We were big time, and he'd go out in the scrub and he'd muster all these sheep, every single sheep on this 250 acres of rock and scrub and bitty bush, and he'd bring all these these sheep in, and we'd be chipping, and he'd just have them and held there. And Pop didn't have the heart to tell him to get out of it because it was he was a bored old sheepdog, and he just wanted to bring these sheep. So a good gathering dog, a good mustering dog, he's got to have cast, he's got to have heart and desire, and so if you've got those things, I think you can make a dog out of them. You know, I love yard work. Don't get me wrong, I really do. But I was watching that National Kelpie Field Trial, and I wasn't competing because I'm not very brave these days. And
Very honest.
but I was loving the outside stuff. And Laura, as I said, sent you a message. I thought you had some great outside stuff. I actually did. I found the inside stuff boring. I've competed in yard dog trials for years, or haven't for years, but I actually didn't find it as interesting as what was happening outside. And a lot of dogs came undone when they come inside, but into the yard section. But I take a lot out of outside. I think that's where the Kelpies excelled and what we bred them for. They've got to be able to work in the yards, but and I won't have a dog that won't work in the yard. But I don't need them to be everything in the yards, I guess. That's my thoughts. It's my if I've got a bias, it's definitely for the outside work.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that about your heelers hitting noses and heels. Obviously, heelers, duh. But what about your kelpies hitting heels?
Never have had a kelpie that's really hit heels, to be honest. They've always been a nose biter, or chance she had a great front foot bite, which was highly effective. So I haven't. Yeah, I honestly haven't. So they've been pretty good on the nose, and I don't. So and I haven't selected for a heel biting kelpie or. Yeah, so I don't. Maybe my grandfather, he was a cattle breeder up there in Lismore. Maybe he and I can't remember him having heel biter, but no, definitely nose bite. I think it's got to be nose bite, and yeah, heel in general. I don't deny that heel in general is not conducive to the good stock work. When I talk in a class too about their flight zones and their blind spots, directly behind them is terrible. I made a terrible rugby league player because I had zero peripheral vision. And it's got nothing to do with my specs, more the fact I'm just a Gumby. And cattle need they need to be able to see. And so heel bite in general is not good. I guess I don't mind, as I said, pressure and relief.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mate, and you've mentioned a few dogs there. Was there a most influential or favourite dog that you had in the past there?
I always think about it. And I don't know why I think about it. Like I like rating things. It's just something wrong with my head. But I got my top 5.
And off, mate.
But so Biddy was the first one. She was amazing and she was good at it all too. But she probably didn't have the finesse that when I put her to Boss, I got that chance bitch, and she was hitting a bit. And I don't think I've bred anything that's been a complete all rounder like she was. She's only a little bitch, and she trialled reasonably well, considering she had a nervy boss that probably didn't show off to best. But she was a good little bitch. I had an Avon Park bitch that did trial very well, and she didn't worry whether I had nerves or not. She used to run over the top of me a bit. She wasn't. She was a Halstead's Rex bitch, and she was pretty nifty, especially in the yard. She was weak as water on cattle. Could work them and was keen on them, but she wasn't very strong on cattle. But as a sheepdog, she was probably up there. Old Salty, I liked him as a pup, and I offered Simo money for him as a pup, and he said no. And then he sold him to me as a 3/4 broken dog, and he was a straight yellow dog with a big buff head, and I was forever explaining to people that I promise he is a purebred Kelpie. But oh wow, that dog, he just had it all. He was a bit big, and he was a bit Gumby, is the way he moved sometimes. As far as he wasn't a quick covering dog, he covered, but he didn't have the cover like that Chance had, or nothing would ever beat her. And he wouldn't, but he'd have to give a bit of ground to do it. But power and strength, and I would have loved to put him over her, but they just didn't match the timelines. I did put him over a granddaughter, and that's where I got another one called Silk, and so she was almost a Chance. So they're probably my top 5 or 4. So yeah, that's them.
Very cool. How you going there?
No, I'm all right. Just what do you you're doing a bit of everything with your dogs. Do you find what is a genuine all-rounder for you?
Okay.
Or is there one? It's probably a better
question. It is hard. And I don't necessarily agree that we have to have one. Like, for instance, I got a young bloke who works for me, and he has got, so Pat, he's got this cracking yard bitch. And and she will back up into a B double. She works. Oh my God. I don't think we've probably got 40 dogs on the place. And she would work and work and work and work. And she wants to, and it's just in her. She's got a big heart, this dog. And she's a great yard dog. He is getting and because he's becoming a tremendous dog trainer, I think she's becoming good outside, but I don't necessarily think she needs it because we've got big, long drives. He's got dogs that are probably better suited to it. And this is the way I see it. I've got Punch, and I took a bitch up to White's Jimmy 8 years ago. We worked it out as 8 years ago. And I kept two, and I don't normally do that. And I was going to plan on keep one and sell the other one in an auction. And I've still got them both. And the black and tan dog, he's the best paddock dog I've ever bred. And cast a mile and stick with him, and you could send him in the scrub. He was just, he's pretty nifty. And the red and tan fella, he's all bluff and bluster. And he's just a yapper. He's like me. He's all noise. Not the big blokes and getting in the way. He's a shit stirring bastard. But shifts sheep and has shifted a lot of sheep. So completely different. He's strong up on top. He's a free barker, which whether people like it or not, he does come back through and barking. He goes up over the top and barking. He's a genuine free barker. I don't really use him outside because I think I've got something better outside. So I like to use a dog where they're strong. So yes, we definitely need to be breeding for all rounders. Do I work them? So maybe not. I'll probably use them where they're strongest because we've got the amount of work to do that. If you only had a little place, I'd want the dog to do everything. You don't want to feed them all. So but we've probably got the capacity to have almost specialists.
Cool. Sorry, mate. There's just a few questions come in. We look at them. We keep rolling here, or where they?
Yeah, keep going here for a second.
Oh no, workers, mate. And you mentioned before, like trainability and biddability. How important are they to yourself? Being a trainer himself.
Well, I'm a shithouse trainer, so they've got.
You've done it for a while.
Sorry.
You've done it for a while.
I have. No, it's not true. I do. I love it.
I'm talking about training in general, like not so much the dogs, like training.
No, I know. No, not true. I think I think the biddability is something that I place a lot on, and I think a dog's. I don't like arguing with dogs. I'm good at arguing with dogs, but I don't like it. I'd prefer not to. And so some of the best stuff I've had, it's been a bit like that one you're talking about before we came on, where you don't have to train them much and they just sort of know. So I think part of the biddability is almost an intelligence thing and wanting to please. And so I definitely like that. I like a dog that wants to please. I've had dogs like Old Salty and that Avonpart Bella. They were tough dogs, and I had a good collie bitch called Tully, and there's no getting through to it. Now I argued with them every day of their lives, and I'd come home hoarse and frustrated. They're tough and they go hard, but it's not as pleasant to work as as those biddable ones. So I do look for that. But if a dog's got talent, I'll put up with it might be a bit hard-headed.
And just based on that, like being a trainer before and then having your dogs, did you approach mindsets of training dogs similar to training people?
Yeah, definitely. And seriously, and it is very similar. Dogs, people, and I really got a lot out of your talk with Tonks. We have to get better with the way we do things, and so I've done I've done a couple of Gary White schools. I've done Paul McPhail. I used to help Paul a little bit. And then, I can't think of the bloke who's up in Bathurst. I've done Greg Prince, and I've done about 300 Ian O'Connell schools over the years, sat in them as a coordinator. So I know his techniques pretty well. I think so. I've observed a lot, and a lot. Oh, Jake Nolan, a lot, and there's some stuff there. You go, wow, that it just changes your mind. But we have to get better, and I think we can get better. I watch what you're doing, Dan. It's in a different world. My wife comes from Melbourne originally, and in flyball, and what they could do with their dogs, and go, oh, I don't do things like that, but can I get more out of my dogs because of training technique? So we've got to be more open to ideas to do that. So I guess that's what I do that with the dogs, and I'm not afraid to try new things, and I'm definitely not afraid to try new things with training stuff. My worst thing now is that I don't have time to train staff, and just because it's such a hectic role, and I actually hate it. I really, really, really hate it, because I'd love to teach some things to my staff that that I've learnt, and pass that stuff on. I am doing it with my dogs, funnily enough, but I'm not doing. I've got enough time for that, but I don't have time for the staff. And the other one that's terrible. This is even worse than all of it. Is these roles are often not good family time. So I've got 3 great young kids that are mad keen, passionate about agriculture, and they should be learning stuff from me, and I don't have the time to be showing them stuff. So those are the things that I wish I was it's better, but I'm time poor. It's a problem.
Yeah, and that's a big shame, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you say you approach your dog training the same as training people, in what ways?
Confidence. So you got people and everything that wanted confidence. The reason I was a shithouse rugby league player was purely confidence. My brother played state. He played for the Western Reds in Perth. He was an amazing rugby league player. And that's because he's a cocky little shit. And he had self-belief. I didn't. I had teammates that used to bag me out, and I played with them for 5 years. And I honestly, every time the ball was coming, I thought, I just kept having their image in my head. I'm going to drop the bloody ball. And guess what I did? I dropped the bloody ball. And then, oh God. So that was and I thought, well, that's no good. And as I got older, funnily enough, I got a bit of confidence in myself, and I became good in other areas. And I don't believe I'm as arrogant. Sometimes Annie says I'm arrogant, and and sometimes people might think, but I promise I'm not. I just am. I'm just trying to have self-belief, and so I believe that in staff. And in training young people and training dogs. So if they've got their self-belief that they can do a job, so start little, grow big, and get little achievements. And so don't go too far ahead. Give them stuff that's achievable. So, you start in the training yard. I hate round yards for too long. I like to get out and about. Sometimes probably not as they should probably be in there a little bit longer with me, but I get out and about with probably not quite enough sheep, but I believe giving them some exposure and experience on that. And then, once they can do that, I like to go, they come to work and they get to see the sights and smells of everything and the sounds. And then, they might just get a mob at a gate, and it might be 20 or 30, might be 500. We run mobs of up to 3,000. So, that's a big thing for a dog to have that exposure and to know where to position and balance themselves. But you don't go straight from the round yard to 3,000. You've got to start that up and give them exposure all the time. And they can't do that if they're home. They've got to be in your dog box or they've got to be on
Yeah.
the back of the bike or buggy girl.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Probably got a question that leads a bit there as well. Do you want to
This
jump?
one?
Yep, that one there.
Joe Levins asked, what would some practical tips be if planning to get some youth together from various backgrounds to build esteem and resilience using dog training as a platform, from your perspective through training people?
So what was the beginning of that one, Laura? Sorry.
No, that's all right. What would you?
Well-
hang on, what would some practical tips be if planning to get some youth together from various backgrounds to build esteem and resilience using dog training as a platform?
Okay, so that's a funny one. Sorry, I just wrote that down. Because we're talking about it. So
That's right. That's what I thought it'd be.
we're
Good time
talking
to
about getting a so you know we've got together, and when Adam came on board, you know, he wanted to avail himself to the team and help everyone out that might want to get together and do dogs. Like when you're a bit dog obsessed, like most of us are in this field, any time to talk dogs, work dogs, look at dogs, watch dog porn on video on Facebook, we do. And so I thought it was good. Once again, time poor, but when we do, it's amazing. And so we'll get together with a couple of with our little group and have a few stubbies and bag each other out as we're working dogs. And a lot of the Kiwis do it better than us. So instead of going and chasing foxes or pigs or whatever on the weekend, the stockies over there, they'll on a weekend they'll get together and they'll actually work train sheepdogs. Now we have no end of young people interested. This is an example. The look at what Victoria, the teams we've got in Victoria. You know, we've got a good young team that's super keen and passionate and doing so well. But that's Australia wide. So I've said to my team, let's have a bit of a working dog club, and I want to do that and have that. And that's not new, but I just want it to have it, pretty relaxed free. And anyway, Josh Laddie rang me today, whether we can set something up a little bit more formal. I wasn't going to go through the association, but maybe it is the best way, and get people in and get them involved. Trialling's a wonderful sport to make you better at stock work, but getting together and doing it. So I don't know whether that will help with esteem, but maybe it will help with confidence in your abilities and perhaps there is a group as well that there's a local woman that is running it that does it for depression, and even Gary White schools with
Red Cross.
and Red Cross, and they're for mental health and stuff. Dogs are wonderful animals because they make us feel good about ourselves. And if they get better, if we can see improvements and they make us get better at what we do, then they help us. And I know for a fact, so many people get so much joy from their dogs. I do, and so I think the more we can do it, the better. As far as the training school, I just think this club will be designed to make people feel better about what they do, and to get you better. And the better you get, without pressure, not the pressure of a proper school. It'll just be working dog afternoons or days. Come and bring a dog. We'll avail our place, but we can go anywhere. It doesn't matter. We're not tied down, and you just try to get together and talk dogs and work dogs.
Absolutely. Build a culture, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. No, culture is exactly right, Dan. That's exactly what it is.
Culture. And I think you touched on it before, like incremental stuff, like having achievable goals and then go, all right, so today in the next month, let's try and achieve ABC. And cool. And then we're going to go on to the next level. Had to start thinking about the alphabet there. My head's too fast, so I can't do it. And then maybe have like small incremental goals. So rather than let's go A to Z, well, let's break A to Z down. What's that? 26. So let's break that down into 5 segments and make 5 different steps in each of that.
Yep.
Right. Okay, there's one missing. I know that. And then work from there. And like maybe that will help with esteem issues. And obviously with different backgrounds, everyone's going through different things and whatnot in their life and where they're up to. So that might even be different demographics and different age groups. So if you keep things and try and have a common goal, do you think that stuff like that can help?
Oh, without a doubt. And no one has to reinvent the wheel. You know, I think there's, you know, I'm happy to steal people's ideas and take the credit for myself.
Copy and steal everything.
Yeah, that's my motto in life. I've got an Irish background. That's what I came out here as a convict. So so I think it's important to continue that heritage. But so it is something that you know, you don't have to make new. We just take people's ideas and say, okay, you've got a dog at this level. You're at this level. We think we can, you know, let's try to achieve this today. And, you know, I know lots of clubs do it. I didn't want it to be formal, but after talking with, you know, Josh today, there's probably a capacity to do it and do it formally, and then bring them into the fold of dog trialing, and where they've got an outlet then, and they've got a group, they've got a community that can, you know, further support them, and they can go a long way. You know, there's lots of opportunities. So yeah, I think there is a capacity. It'd be wiser man or woman than I to come up with it, but I'm happy to support it in any shape or form.
And not to harp on like about stuff that I've been involved with, but obviously like the rough track and Bernie Shakeshaft's done it with the backtrack boys, right? But rather than use dog trialing, he's used a high jump.
Yep.
Right. So I suppose there's a couple of I just had the word on. I just had a stroke mid sentence. Platforms that I could kind of copy and steal and just insert into somewhere else, right? And some of it like trialing. Imagine you had like a group of 6 young fellows or whatever, and you just got up and everyone's, all right, where are we going next week? We're going to this trial. And imagine the camaraderie you could have there, and then even the little competitions within the competitions to build and just keep building it, like, and just use them as building blocks.
I've seen dogs save lives, and I've seen dogs give people a purpose in life and a passion, and young ones, and so young ones are rough, you know, wrong side of the tracks, and it's given them something to, you know, to live for. Oh my God, you seriously could be. So you might be right with that. Those platforms, we can easily morph them into something for working with stock. Guess what? We also give them a career. So it's not just, you know, dog high jump. Whilst it's a wonderful thing, there's no real outlet after that. But, and I know the program is bigger than that. But you know, we can give career is in agriculture can be a wonderful career, or is a wonderful career. So I think hell yeah, this is something that could be grown.
Definitely.
Absolutely,
yeah.
On the something there, 100%. And Joe, if that is something you are getting into, I'm more than happy to speak with you privately at another time, mate, and spitball ideas. I'm up for anything like that helps young people. So
Same.
All up for that. Speaking of talking about helping young people out, tell us about starting a pup, mate. What age do you start a pup, and what stock, and what expectations do you have?
You know, I don't believe in starting a pup before it's 2.5. If my recent track record's anything to go by. Fletcher's always asked me, "Oh, how's that young dog?" It's like, no, it's going really well. And in one respect, so while I was contracting, I did find it challenging I'd have these young dogs and I'd get them to a certain stage, and then I'd go, "Oh, I'm not giving it the work," and I'd either give it away to a young person that was in need, or I'd sell it. And so, but I've got some great young stuff. So, and what I do is, and it's keep the instinct. So you've got to get the instinct out, and you've got to get that reasonably early. So you've got to get that with young pups. and you've got to get them showing sheep. They've got to be keen and bring that out, because I have seen it the opposite where you don't and they actually lose it. Like you, and so you got to do that, but they don't have to be doing anything formally. It's just going around trying to balance and keep them on the other side. Don't put too many words to it. I don't put pressure on dogs. I used to when I was 18 years old and needed to build a team of dogs, but I don't need to now. And I've got that luxury of letting a dog grow up mentally. And I'm a big believer that the mental, they can handle it a lot easier if they're a little bit older. Because I've got these young ones and they range from 15 months to, probably 2 years old that are just handling the training like with ease. And they're going from not much to being very useful dogs very quickly. And so that's been, so I don't have to rush it. In the meantime, you've got back in the round yard, you've done your balancing, and then you do put a command, but that's about 6 to 12 months. After that, they're coming to work every day anyway, and just for the exposure, but they're probably not doing much. They might get tired at the back of the yard. Seeing the action, learning restraint. When I had the clip-egg sheep handler, I'd have a dog tied up about a foot from me so that they learnt restraint. They were allowed to bark when I asked them to, but, they knew what quiet was. And so they just learnt quiet, and they might get a mouthful of dust or I've got a dog suit with water. And sometimes I'd sit up that to quiet, and nothing else, no physical, just a scoop full of water. But it's all about, but you've got to get them keen. So they've got to keep them being exposed to that stuff. And so that's what it's done. But I don't mind if they're not, if they don't fully know their sides till a bit later. It's in the ideal world, it'd be better. But as I said, I haven't been in a rush. I probably will do it a lot quicker now. Like that 6 to 12 months will be a different thing now. For me, now that I've got time on the job to do it, so I can do it with less guilt.
Yep. Absolutely. And we spoke about like breeding a few parts. What do you actually like about breeding? What is it for you? What keeps you intrigued?
Well, if I could either breed or a winner of the National Kelpie Trial or the Yard Dog or win one, I'd prefer to breed. And I don't know, to me, it's like breeding, champion of Sydney Royal, Hereford, or Polled Orchard or Merino. I think there's a lot more involved in that. For me, sorry, what was the question again, Dan? I've lost.
What's your kicker for breeding? Like, what do you enjoy out of it?
Oh, so I just like breeding the next champion, and I hate when I breed average Joe. I want them all to be champions, and when they're 6 weeks old, I think they are. I go, wow, this is going to be it in a bit, and then they become feather dusters. But I do, and to see something that you go, wow, or something you've bred and someone else has got, and you go, you're dirty that someone else has got it. At least hey, I've bred something pretty cool there, and so it's that next generation and making sure, and I don't wait. I don't always wait long enough for them to, because I've had too many losses where, there's one time there I lost 5 dogs in 3 months to snake bite, and so I don't always wait until they're showing me everything. If they're showing me some really good talent, I'm not afraid to breed them younger, from 12 months on or something, just because you can lose genetics so quick. So yeah, I do like breeding. I breed 1 or 2 litters a year. I'm not a volume breeder. I always breed. I always keep something, I'm not up there with the best. I've got lots to learn as far as breeding, but it's something that I want to get better at. That's for sure.
What do you take away? You said you're not up there with the best. What do you take away from the best?
So size selection and making. I do pick a lot of people's brains. I'd sit and I'd like the capris and the whites and that having parts over the years. I've often asked them, but and they don't give all their secrets away. They'd be mad to. But I started breed a bit closer years ago, and funnily enough, I started to breed a little bit more consistently. The best stumpy tails I've ever bred, I actually bred, grandson over grandmother, and ended up getting something really special there. And it took me years. I was looking for years. It's really hard to find stumpy tail genetics working stuff that's consistent. Yeah. And so that was a really good thing that I did. But then I've actually ended up with these stumpies that do nothing now. But I got the work I wanted. So I guess line breeding is something that there's a bit of science to, and I don't pretend to be an expert, but I prefer to do it that way, or common ancestry, rather than complete out crosses. And that's what I ruined with that Capri Boss bitch. I was choosing the right size every time, but they were 100% complete out crosses. And so I think that was where I was going wrong, and so started to try to align things a little bit better that way. I think that's where I think that's where I focus my breeding wise these days.
Yeah,
sweet.
So, have you done much trialing at all over the years?
Yeah. I'm probably the least a successful trial. I've often got the oldest novice dog on the course. But I'm fine with that. When you've got a distinct lack of talent like I do, it's often hard. But I love trialing. I got involved. Started trialing in 90. It might have been 99. And old Joe Attenborough, he's dead now. He's a bloody champion, and he got a good few young people. He mentored a few people. His career, he was out at Mullins. He was a 3-sheeper, but he used to run the Orange and the Mullins yard dog trials, and he's a gentleman. He was. He got me into trialing, and so I did 3 sheep. I did yard dogs. I actually won the Mullins Encourage 3 sheep. It might be my best trial win yet, with a score of 0. But I was the only one. I was the only one to pen. So I started there. I got a few good encourages. I go honestly, I go into my shed and I've got ribbons and trophies up there that I forgot I've even got from when I was in New South. I moved to Victoria. I don't know, I found it tougher down here. And to be honest, I don't love it as much down here. And then I spent 12 months in Tassie, and I think whatever Tassie is, I loved it. The best trial I've ever been to is the Tunnock trial. If you ever get a chance, go to the Tunnock trial. There is not the same breed or shape of sheep across the whole lot that they get in. You might have a little tiny Saxon Merino, and then you'll get this massive, big composite weather that they've pulled out of the scrub somewhere, and you've got to fit, if you've got 12 sheep in the race, you got to fit all 12, whether it's full of those composites or full of those Saxons. It's cool. And the best thing is it's across the road from the pub, so the minute that trial finishes, you're in there, and everyone knows those Tassie boys know how to party. So I've trialled reasonably well. I did okay over there, and I still and there's some good talent there. I did okay in my younger days in New South Wales, and I was in finals in Victoria at times, but I've never come up with massive chocolates. I love it, and I love the sport, and it definitely made me better at what I do. I ran a 98 in Blaney. It was the year 2000, and I had the worst hangover. I could still have been drunk, to be honest. And I got a 98, but everyone else was somewhere else. So I got a 98, and the conveners at the time said, "Oh, look, Scott, you've won a great trial. I got first and second, in the novice. And against, there's a couple of other Muppets there that didn't do any good. And I thought, yes, this is amazing. And I didn't even get a ribbon, and I didn't even get the prize money because everyone else was at some other big trial. I went, oh no! So that was my best win ever. But yeah, anyway, I've got a trialing career that's a bit bland, but I've enjoyed, and I've met some great characters and people.
And I suppose that brings me then. You've mentioned a couple of different formats of trialing, but why do or did you trial? What was it?
Yeah,
I think he's answered that like 50 times.
Yeah, but you just started talking about the people, and I was
yeah, it is. No, I'm actually antisocial, Dan. So you probably think that it is the people, but unless it's the first night at Mansfield, and I got very socially lubricated, excited. But no. So it is the people, and it's a wonderful forum to meet people and like-minded people, and to test your mettle against others. And don't get me wrong, I don't go out there to lose. You go out there to compete, and that's probably why I don't compete as well. I don't have the finesse on my dogs that I probably should, and I get chastised by a few of the older crew now that says, "When are you coming back, Scotty? Why don't you ever dog in this weekend?" And it is true, and I do feel that I should be there, and in here I think I am good enough, and so it's a wonderful thing trialing. As far as forums, I mean, I was part of the Victorian Cattle Dog Association when we first set it up. I love you. My favourite forum is a utility, and I think a utility is a true test of a dog. And to see the USDs and what the new generation is making it, wow, that is phenomenal, and that's what we should be doing. Just so we know, I'd clean everyone up with my chance if I still had it today. That'd be unbeatable, I guarantee.
I love it.
Love it.
So it's just,
love it.
Just, I'm full of shit, but no. So that's yeah. Trialing is a great thing, and I highly recommend it for everyone. Everyone.
And do you believe it made you a better stock? Well, you touched on it made you a better person, but how did it make you a better stock person?
Well, you got to know with 10 sheep or 3 sheep or whatever forum it is, or 3 head of cattle that want to eat you alive. And because that's what it's like when we first set up that association. It's actually really, you've got to show a little bit of restraint for you and your dog. You've got to have control. You've got to be able to position your dogs. And I think I'd still do all those things now. The one thing I hate, the only thing that I dislike about trialing when you employ someone that is a pure trialist is when they stand there and they stand on the end of the gate and they don't help their dog.
Yeah.
And it drives me bonkers. Because we're not at a trial now where you're here to shift, 3,000 head of sheep today. You got to pull your finger, and as does your dog. You've got to help your dog. You've got to turn those heads. But what it does make you do is you need to be able to position your dog where it's having the most effect, and that's where it makes you better at what you do. Too much pressure blows it up. Not enough. You're not achieving your end goal.
No, well, and I'm actually glad you highlighted that thing about standing on the gate and not helping your dog. Been in plenty of situations out there where you see someone that you're actually in work and they're working like a trial, and like there might be some young stock or something around, and there's fences, and you're like, mate, just get off the gate, go and move, go and help
them. You got to help young dogs. Young dogs sometimes need help, and it doesn't ruin your dog. It doesn't. Like you've got, your dog knows when it's trial day and when it's not. And if you're doing enough at home or on the in the training pen, and you've done that well, it shouldn't matter. It does make you get in the training pen more. That's the other thing it makes you better at.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What advice would you give to someone wanting to pursue a career in the livestock and working dog industries?
Call me. I need as many people as I can get. No, and as seriously, there is so many opportunities. So I do say that in jest, but I'd love to offer people opportunities. But sometimes, we're probably not set up for training big time. But there are lots of places that are. Be picky about where you go. Remember the interview. If you go for an interview, the interview is for you too. So as in you're interviewing them. So if you don't get a good vibe from someone, there's plenty of opportunities for ag at the minute. We're all crying out. Well, it doesn't matter what field we're in at the minute. Everyone needs staff, but we're all crying out for staff. Have the right attitude. Unfortunately, agriculture is not 9 to 5. I wish it was sometimes. It's not 9 to 5. So don't be realistic when you come in. But there's so many opportunities. It's a great career. As I said, agriculture skipped a generation for me, and I came in pretty green, and I was just lucky I fell on my feet with my second employer. So that helps you. So just get in, have a go. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That's really important, but just ask them at the appropriate time, and be realistic about, if you actually want it in, on farm, remember it's not going to be 9 to 5, unfortunately.
And how much you're going to pay me probably isn't the best question to lead with as well, right?
And turn up on time I'm late to everything, but I'm never late to a job interview.
If you're not 10 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late.
That's exactly right, Dan.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. But yeah, so and it is, and all of those things. I had someone turn up, and the first thing they asked for was a tank of fuel. They surprisingly didn't get the job. And you go, oh my God, there is a horde of people out there. But yeah, well, I have given some jobs to some no-hopers and turned them into legends. There's one bloke in Tassie. Oh my God, he actually moved to an area. Hopefully, he's not listening tonight because he's a good bloke.
It's all right, just don't mention names.
He moved to this remote area, so he couldn't get a job. And he said he was a computer technician. He wasn't. That was just what he told Centrelink. And he was out in the middle of nowhere. So unfortunately, he couldn't find a job for computer technician. Well, I gave him a job on this big cattle operation. And he tried to rule the roost for a bit. And we ended up pulling him into line. He became an absolute dead set legend in the cattle. He was a great worker, great stuff. And he's still in the industry to this day. So, so there's some great opportunities in ag. Great opportunities.
Emma, is there someone you'd like us to sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
I want more Kiwis. Kiwis annoy me.
Tell us what you really think.
The world should be more black and white and less grey, I think. But we need more. I think you need more. I love the Hunterways. I know Pip talked about Hunterways, and she's got some great dogs. She's extremely talented. But I think if you can get onto some good ones, and I don't know, Bernard McGlashan might be a good connection. He's a good Kiwi. He's now Aussie. But I love the old Hunterway and what they do with that mongrel breed of dog, and what they can achieve is phenomenal. And we think we know how to work Hunterways over here. Jake and Pip are probably the only two in Australia that know how to work a Hunterway, because we don't, and we ruin them. But they're a great dog in the right hands. So I'd love to hear some more of that stuff, and how over the ditch, how they do ag. And it's a whole pool of stock handlers over there that we don't know about. I don't know any, but that's someone I think that's a direction I'd like you to go anyway. But by the way, you're going great. So you don't need any help. You're going bloody beautiful. I love the one with Tonksy last week. I used to read Tonksy's articles in the magazines when I was a kid. I reckon it's fantastic. So, it's good.
Appreciate it.
And just on that, if there is anyone out there that does have any connections to someone over the ditch there and they'd like us to speak to, like, please just reach out to us and then hook us up. Like, we're running blind sometimes, right? So give us light.
Yep. Good.
Fantastic, mate. It's come to that time of the night. Is there a question that stood out to you and they will win a bag of Enduro high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat? And just to be honest, there was a stack of questions that come through, but they actually came through after the topics we spoke about. So we kind of didn't backtrack.
No, I'm sort of glad because a lot of people were going to give me a fair bit of grief tonight, they said. So
we didn't answer that. There was a few of those here as well, mate. You kept us so entertained that we thought we'd just keep rolling on.
No, thank you. And I knew you'd vet them well. So that's why I told them, go your hardest. But
I'm a good
one. Well, the training and how we can build a team. I thought that was that Joe?
Yeah, Joe Levin.
Joe Levin. Yeah. Sorry.
And I honestly, I think that there is the more and more I see of that, and the power that's in the old mongrel sheepdog, is and what it can do for us. I think that's great. So I thought that's a great question.
Fantastic, Joe. If you get in contact with us, a bag of Enduro coming your way. And Scotty, you got a bag coming your way as well, mate, for being a guest and giving us your time.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome, mate. But you don't get away that easy.
One last question, as always. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks? And why?
Well, I actually went back through your dog talk one. I was going to say about the duck one but I saw that one you posted about that duck going nuts on that. Holy crap, that meant business. But because I've got a bit of Irish blood in me, and I think I'm more a lover than a fighter these days. But I'll take the numbers. I think I'll take the 20 horses the size, the 20 ducks the size of horses.
Beautiful.
No, the opposite.
20 horses the size of ducks.
Thanks.
When I think of that, I think of like the Happy Gilmore and they're all on the ponies in his dreams and they're going around in circles. I don't know why, but anyway, it's for association, right? Scott, thank you very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. It's been very entertaining and we could sit here for another 3 hours and get on to topics that are even different with different dogs like we did the other night. Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you. It's great to meet someone else that's got a lot of enthusiasm for what they do as well and passionate. And to everyone that logged on, there was a stack of people that jumped on tonight. Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for your questions. And to everyone that listens back. And please remember, we learn every day. And the day we stop learning will be a sad day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, mate.